Hi guys, how's it going? You good? I'm good. Welcome back to my channel. So if you're new here, I do apologize, but today isn't going to be as structured as usual. Today is a rant, as is probably indicated in the title. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I feel like it is always going to be a relevant topic or issue when half of the world population isn't engaged in something that's supposed to be beneficial for everybody. In this case, the issue being, or the cause being, environmentalism. So what I mean by environmentalism, because again, this is going to be a rant, it's just going to be like an amalgamation of everything you can think of, from like sustainability, low waste living, caring about fast fashion and shopping secondhand, etc. Like, I'm just bashing it all in there. It's become apparent to me that a lot of the content I watch on YouTube about environmentalism, or that is like geared in any sort of way where it's like care for the planet, reduce emissions, etc., is produced by women. This may be because my own personal algorithm is biased, or maybe if someone else who has a similar algorithm tailoring that's like similar to mine might attest that actually this is just how it is on YouTube or on the internet in general. Like, most articles I can find about fast fashion, about low waste living, are written by women, are targeted towards women. You have feminine products being made more environmentally friendly, you have it being made more aesthetic to shop secondhand, and all these ads and campaigns are in fluffy, friendly pastels. And while I don't want to come across as, looking at everything in a binary, we do live in a world that treats people in a binary. So even though, gender constructs are essentially useless and just box everyone into things, it's important to talk about this issue in that way, because that is currently how the world works, unfortunately. So yeah, a lot of this marketing and stuff will be targeted towards women, and women are more likely to be guilted towards, hey, you should be living more sustainably, you should be more environmentally friendly, and here's another woman talking about this who you should aspire to be like, right? Or at least that's how I perceive the content, because I'm very insecure and I want to complain about myself all the time. I feel like a lot of people can possibly relate to that, or maybe that's just me, I don't know. But it's been interesting to me to think, well, why is it just women? I mean, not necessarily that I hate it's just women. I mean, of course, there are a lot more approachable or relatable to me, especially when the content is produced by other Black women or women of color. So yeah, of course, that sort of stuff would be geared towards me. But even in, like, if you search, well, personally, when I've searched the word environmentalism on YouTube incognito, I still will find that a lot of the results will be women. And where there is men, like for example a channel I watch called Our Changing Climate, the men do not show their faces. It's usually voiceovers over some stellar editing work and like articles and overlays and stuff, and they don't show their face for a number of reasons. People choose not to show their faces, I'm not knocking them on that, but it is a common theme that I've seen where content that is, for lack of a better word, controversial by men is often through either an alias or them hiding their face or concealing their face, their identity, whereas women are more likely, at least in the cases that I've seen. Again, this is just personal opinion, this is a rant. I may put some useful references or articles to look at in the description as always, but right now I am just speaking from personal opinion, personal observations, and not necessarily like, there are studies to show though that in real life men are less likely to partake in anything that's going to be perceived as like caring for the planet for reasons that may stem from anything from homophobia, toxic masculinity, etc., because caring for such causes is automatically deemed feminine, which is very strange to me. It's also important to note that a lot of the problems that environmentalism is trying to solve have come about from development that has been largely pioneered by men, Western men, right? So you have things like colonization, imperialism, capitalism, where all this mining and emissions and stuff have resulted from things that were largely led by men, although this is of course the ongoing like discussion that it's been led by men, but Western women have been just as complicit, right? Because it wouldn't work if it wasn't both taking part or having an involvement. The same way any environmentalism efforts won't work if both parts don't partake as well. And a major irony for this is that a lot of work in terms of like sustainable energy, where the biggest emissions are made, a lot of the jobs are geared towards men. So I've seen like videos showing that work in sustainable energy and stuff, the jobs are advertised mostly to men instead of to women, and there's still a gender bias in those industries, gender pay gaps, etc. You know, all the ceilings, all the glass ceilings, really, just slap them all on there. And yet on the smaller scale, personal, everyday actions bit where everyone's like, do your part to save the climate, men aren't involved all of a sudden. So it's very strange to me that it's only in specific sects that can be maybe marketed as being like a manly, like machine handling or operations or the science of it all is where men are all of a sudden involved, but not in the still won't carry their own bag to the shop. That doesn't really add up. Like, I have no other way to explain why this is a thing other than toxic masculinity and the association of environmentalism with womanliness or femininity, and femininity being seen as a bad thing. I've just been complaining for a few minutes, and the issue I then stumble upon in cases like this is, well, what is the solution? What do we do about it? And I guess the closest thing I can say on an individual level is like, well, talk to the men in your life and see what their thoughts are on things, and how they can how you can help them, you know, do their part in their daily lives. So thinking selflessly under capitalism is something one really has to learn, I think. It's very difficult to convince yourself, let alone another person, to do the right thing, right? When convenience is like right there in front of you, and when the biggest of the perpetrators are not held accountable, as we've seen especially in this pandemic. Even with like the biggest people who have like the major influence, which is policymakers, politicians, right? It's often women politicians who are put at the forefront of being like, oh, they're socialists, they're gonna help change or actually make the Paris Agreement and meet the 2030, 2050 targets, right? In the US, people venerating AOC, or you have Greta Thunberg, like the people like that. It's usually women who are put as the people who are gonna save the day, which feels like a very unfair burden, considering, again, it's supposed to be a two-way street. If anything, I would say caring for the environment, being an environmentalist in any way, shape or form, top or down, wherever you are, is strong thing, a really hard hill to die on, because the amount of pushback one would face really does require a lot of strength that I would argue is very manly man, like very, very manly man. Yeah, that is just me, and those are all the thoughts I have for today. Please let me know your thoughts on this ramble if you've somehow made it to the end. I don't know how you've done that, but thank you very much for sticking around. If you haven't already, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to this channel, and I will see you next time.